Hi, everyone. I hope you're doing well. We are just about halfway through the week here in the third week of June, and so much is changing so quickly this month energetically. And I wanted to come on and talk a little bit about some of the themes and a little bit about what I'm seeing in session with my clients so that you might be able to understand what we're navigating right now. So one of the things that has presented itself very strongly in the last week and a half is this idea of accessing higher truth when we're in relationship. And a lot of the topics that I cover on these lives often have to do with relationship because that is a part of how we grow on this planet. So much of our growth cycle and the things that we experience here and the lessons that we learn come in relationship, which can mean challenges for us as we have to navigate that. And I had a session this morning with a client, and we were talking about the energetics of empathy and the energetics of narcissism. And I know a lot of people teach about this, and I have kind of a controversial view on the idea of empathy and narcissism. And I want to share that with you all today because I feel like it's time for us as empaths, those of us who are sensitive, to take a bit more responsibility. And it's also time for us to set some stronger boundaries. And this is coming to the surface right now, I think, because one of the main themes of June is this idea of accessing higher truth. And when we have access to higher truth, we are able to clearly articulate what it is that we want and what it is that we need without feeling guilty or ashamed of it. And when it comes to the relationships between empaths and narcissists, there's often this shame guilt paradigm that's happening. And that creates this frequency where we will often, as empaths, not set boundaries. We will not speak our truth. We will not ask for what we need. And we will make a lot of excuses as to why we won't do it. And so over the last week and a half, I've been talking with a lot of people about certain relationships that they have and helping these clients to navigate these challenging relationships. And oftentimes what I hear is, well, I won't set the boundary because I might disappoint somebody, or they might get upset with me, or they may not like me anymore if I say no or I set a boundary. And, I understand that. I understand that we are conditioned to always think of others before we think of ourselves. And that in itself isn't bad, right? The idea of being an empath and being somebody who is sensitive, who has a lot of care for the people around us, is not a bad thing. But when it comes down to us putting them before us and not taking our own needs into account and always choosing to be in this self-sacrifice place, it actually turns into this very kind of toxic soup in relationship. And so let me just talk about the energetics of empathy and the energetics of narcissism for just a second. So the empath is someone who has a deep feeling heart, somebody who is very sensitive, somebody who, when you are in relationship with someone, you have this ability to feel what they're feeling and almost see beyond their story and see to the heart of their wounds. And that is a beautiful gift. Certainly my ability to see that with my clients allows me to do what I do. But if I take that same viewpoint into all of my relationships, and I always make decisions about how I treat people based only on the wounds that I see and using my empathy, then oftentimes we can set ourselves up for failure in relationship. Because 9 times out of 10, the empath will call in a narcissist. And the energetics of narcissism is that they have the same wounds as the empath. They have a problem being externally validated. They have a problem being internally validated. They have a lack of self-esteem. They have a lack of confidence. They have deep wounds and traumas and shame energy that they're often carrying, which is the same energy that the wounded empath often carries. But the difference is that the wounded empath shows up, and rather than making it about them by pretending that everything is okay and wanting everybody to look at them, they actually become the martyr. They step into relationship and they take on everybody else's pain, and they step into that martyrdom role and they sacrifice themselves in order to make everybody around them feel better. And when everybody around them feels better, then they feel loved, they feel important. Now, the narcissist turns this on their head, right? On the head, because the way the narcissist will show up in relationship is that they will come forward and they will have those same wounds. And rather than operating from those wounds in the way of taking responsibility for everyone around them and seeking love in that way, they puff up their ego. They make themselves bigger, they expand their field, and they take up all of the air in the room. And that charisma and that charm that they often carry draws the empath in, because the empath is attracted to that empowerment energy that they carry. And then as soon as the empath is drawn into that narcissism, what happens is they see, oh, wow, this is somebody in their power. This is really attractive because I want to be in my power. And then they start to realize that the person who is being the big narcissistic blowhard actually has the same wounding as them. And so then they trauma bond, right? They come together and they trauma bond on the same shame, the same guilt, and the same unworthiness that they're both carrying. And then the empath looks beyond all of the narcissist's bad behavior and says, but they're broken and I know I can fix them. I know I can help them. I know that I can take that energy on and I can transmute it, because that's what I do for everybody. That's how I show up in the world. That's what being an empath is. And so they get enmeshed in this relationship. And sometimes what happens is one of them wakes up and makes a decision to exit that relationship, right? Maybe one of them cheats on the other person, or maybe one of them decides, oh, what am I doing? This person is manipulating me and I'm not happy, and they make an exit. But if they make an exit, either one of them, and those wounds of shame and guilt and unworthiness haven't been healed, then they're going to repeat that pattern over and over and over and over again. So when it comes to this theme in June of accessing higher truth in relationship, we have to actually really take responsibility for how we're showing up. So regardless of if you're the narcissist or the empath, the healing aspect, the higher truth that we have to bring in is taking full responsibility for how we are showing up in that relationship. Because as much as we want to vilify the narcissist, the empath is equally as responsible in that situation. Now, when there's abuse or there's some sort of really negative behavior from the narcissist going on, certainly that is not the empath's fault. Okay, I don't want you to think I'm victim blaming here, because that's not what this is at all. But if we're in this relationship and we're an empath and we've chosen to bring this narcissist in and we've chosen to look beyond their bad behavior and say, I can fix them. I know I can fix them. I know I can heal them. In order to unwind from that pattern and start to love ourselves, the first step is that we have to start setting boundaries. We have to start choosing ourselves. We have to start saying, no, I'm not going to take on their pain. I'm not going to look beyond their bad behavior and see that they're in pain and make excuses for them anymore. And this applies across the board, everyone. This is not just in romantic relationship. This is in friendship. This is in coworkers. This is in all of the relationships that you're in this lifetime. And I know that many of you are empaths that are watching this, that are listening to this, because you're my people, right? And I serve my people, right? All of you are empaths likely to some degree. And, there's another component of this that I've recently realized that I just want to talk about as an example, to kind of give you a bit more of a little foothold into this topic. So for me, this last week, I taught a 3-night series called Channeling the Ancestors. And I've been doing some deep ancestral work since January and February of this year. And there's this really great book, I have it right beside me, called It Didn't Start With You, that if you're doing ancestral trauma work at all, I highly recommend it. And certainly if you're interested in my series, you can still purchase it. You'll get the recordings. But when we dive into doing ancestral work, especially if you're an empath, likely you're not the first in your family. And what I've come to realize is that, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you want to look at it, because I called them in, my parents have been doing this empathic, narcissistic journey their whole lives. And I have oscillated as a child and into an adulthood between taking sides, because both of them want me to be on their side because I'm their child, right? I'm an only child. And when it comes to relating to the narcissist that is in my family, I have to have really clear boundaries, and I have to be really aware of how that person shows up and not put myself in a situation where I can be manipulated or taken advantage of. That doesn't mean that I don't love them, right? It doesn't mean that I don't care about them. And this is very confusing. If you have a narcissist as a parent, I'm sorry, because it's hard, right? And there's varying degrees of this. Sometimes they're very much in their empathy, right? Because narcissists can be empathetic as well. But we have to set boundaries with people, even if they're a parent or a loved one, based on their behavior, based on how they're showing up, not based on what we want them to do or how we want them to be or how we expect that relationship should look, because we've looked across at other people that have relationships with their parents in a certain way and we want that relationship. And if you're like me and you have one of each as a parent, you can't victim blame the empath. And this can be very difficult, especially if you've witnessed a lot of suffering in your parents' relationships or your grandparents' relationship. This can go further back in your family line. If we've witnessed a lot of suffering where that empath keeps almost self-sacrificing over and over again, there's a tendency, if you're an empath as well, to want to blame them and want to push them away and want to be angry with them because they're not taking ownership and taking responsibility for their own boundaries. And sometimes that can be very triggering for us to witness, because maybe we have some of that our own work to do in that way as well. And so with the empath, right, that may be a parent or a friend or a family member, you still have to set boundaries as well, right? Because the two of you may trauma bond on what it's like to be an empath, and you may end up dumping energy into each other's fields all the time. And so it's not easy to navigate this, right? If you're an empath or you're in relationship with a narcissist, or you have parents or family members or friends who are in these categories, know that this is difficult stuff. But the other thing that I want to share is that the empath and the narcissist are two sides of the same coin, okay? They're the same. The way that their wounds show up are very different, but they are the same. The empath makes it all about them by self-sacrificing and taking responsibility for everybody around them, being the martyr, right? And eventually people get really tired of martyrs because they're always singing the same tune, right? They're always complaining. They're always in this place of negativity, and they're always the victim. And the narcissist makes it all about them by taking up all the air in the room and never asking about anybody around them, never having that emotional intelligence, never caring about the people around them. But there's a lot of similarities in those two types. And I believe that probably most of us are both. I think we have moments where we can be deep in our empathy and we can be compassionate and we can be understanding and still have good boundaries. And there are moments where we make it all about us and we're a narcissist and we take up all the air in the room. And so part of my journey in witnessing what's come in my family line, as many of the women in my family have married narcissists, is to realize that they chose that for a reason. They chose that to heal something. They chose that to move through something. And there's power and strength in that. And one of the other themes of June is to reclaim our ancestry and reclaim the strength of our ancestry, which is a huge theme right now. Many of us have just rejected our family because it's uncomfortable or they're toxic or whatever reason we have. And those boundaries may need to be there, right? I'm never going to tell you not to honor those boundaries if they feel important, but we can still claim the strength that some of those patterns have created. And so in my own journey, as I've kind of unwound from some of this ancestral pattern, is to start to realize, oh, I maybe didn't choose a narcissist to be married to, but I bring them in nonetheless. I bring in people that need me to prop them up. Because as an empath, I thought that that was my role. I thought I needed to take responsibility for everybody's healing process around me. And so when we claim and access higher truth, it's this idea of releasing any blinders that we have and truly taking responsibility for the way our actions are creating conflict in the relationships around us. And when we claim responsibility for that, we can let go of the responsibility, the false responsibility that we've claimed on behalf of others. Because when the empath takes on the narcissist pain, they extend the narcissist pain and they actually can't heal because the empath is ruining the narcissist process. The best thing that an empath can do for a narcissist to help them heal is to set a boundary with them, to say no to them, to say, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to take on your pain anymore. I'm not going to let you manipulate me. I'm setting a boundary. I'm releasing you. And I'm not going to be vilifying you. I'm not going to hate you. I'm not going to seek revenge on you. I'm just setting a boundary and I'm not going to take it anymore. And when that happens, it breaks that chain, not only for the empathic person, but it also sends an energy pulse into the narcissist field where they may wake up. They may or may not change, right? They may not change their ways, but it may shift them a bit. It may clear some karma. It may clear some energy that they're carrying. And so if you don't take responsibility for your part in those relationships, that healing can never happen for either one of you. And if you're just holding their pain and self-sacrificing, that's not serving anyone, including yourself. So this is a really big theme right now as we lead into the latter half of June and we get into July and we're starting to bring more light in and more energy in ahead of the Lionsgate portal in August. This is all about claiming our empowerment, claiming our autonomy, stepping into our truth, right? These are really important themes that are going to carry us through the rest of the month and into July. And I think it's time that we start breaking these patterns because we've kind of hidden behind them, oftentimes as sensitive people. And when we don't take responsibility for our own actions, we can't heal. So I hope this helps. I hope this sheds a little light on some of the dynamics that may be going on in your life right now. Comment, let me know what questions you have, what thoughts you have, and I will see you soon with some more updates and some more information. Thanks for watching. Bye.